All right, we should be live. Hopefully, all good to go. Let me pull up Rumble Studio here. And while I do that, I'm going to throw us directly into the latest news because this is pretty big. So, let's take a listen.
Breaking moments ago, new reports from Open.
Not breaking moments ago, this happened earlier in the day, 6 to 8 hours ago.
Source plane spotters show 6 B-2 stealth bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri appearing to head toward a U.S. Air Force base in Guam. The B-2 can carry 2 15-ton bunker buster bombs that could be used to target Iran's heavily fortified Fordo nuclear site. This is a second U.S. aircraft carrier will arrive in the Middle East this weekend. President Trump will return later today to the White House for an intelligence briefing. Welcome to Fox News Live on a busy news weekend. I'm Mike Emanuel in Washington. New airstrikes from the Israeli Air Force against missile storage and launch infrastructure in Iran overnight as the IDF says it has killed the commander of the Quds Force, who is a key coordinator of weapons deliveries to Hamas. Fox News senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palkot is live in Tel Aviv with more. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Mike. Yeah, we are into now day 9 of the war between Israel and Iran, and there are more raids on key Iranian targets as well as individuals. The Isfahan nuclear facility was hit for the second time by Israel. The IAEA confirms real damage was done to the centrifuge construction facility. And another assassination by Israel. Saeed Izzati, a Revolutionary Guard commander who played a key role in the deadly October 7 Hamas attack against Israel, was taken out. And the IDF claims to have shot down nearly all 40 Iranian drones headed towards Israel this morning. Tehran has had less success with these relatively slow-moving projectiles. Now, here in Tel Aviv, after we watched overnight a barrage of some 5 Iranian missiles, all knocked down by Israeli defenses, it has been relatively quiet, knock wood. Evening usually sees more activity. And as you noted, Mike, Fox News, citing sources, is reporting that 6 B-2 stealth bombers have left their home base in Missouri, said to be headed to Guam, which is a bit close.
6? Let me replay that. Holy.
B-2 nobly quiet, knock wood. Evening usually sees more activity. And as you noted, Mike, Fox News, citing sources, is reporting that 6 B-2 stealth bombers have left their home base in Missouri, said to be headed to Guam, which is a bit closer and a bit of an easier run to Iran. Now, Mike, that aircraft is the only one that can deploy the much-discussed bunker-busting bombs needed to take out Iran's deeply dug and crucial Fordo nuclear facility. Back to you.
Greg Palkot starting us off live in Tel Aviv. Greg, many thanks. President Trump will head back to Washington later today for a briefing on Iran after announcing he would wait up to 2 weeks on a decision to strike the Middle Eastern country. Nate Foy is traveling with the president in Bedminster, New Jersey. Hello, Nate.
Hey, Mike, good afternoon. So, yeah, the pieces on the chessboard and the posturing ahead of a potential decision from President Donald Trump, which he promises is coming in the next 2 weeks, continues to develop with, according to that open source flight tracking data, those 6 B-2 bombers, and according to the data that we are seeing in the refueling pattern of those planes, it appears that they left without a full fuel tank, which could indicate that they are in fact carrying those bombs on board. But the White House has not confirmed this independently. We are working for that confirmation. But President Trump is at his Bedminster Club here today in New Jersey. He's going back to the White House later today where he will meet with his national security team. And he spoke yesterday about that 2-week timeline that he's promised. Listen here.
Mr. President, what was the thought process behind the 2-week timetable?
Just time to see whether or not people come to their senses. I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Now, Mike, Trump also pushed back on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's comments that Israel is capable of destroying Iran's Fordo nuclear facility on its own. The president said Israel has a limited capacity. He also said his own national intelligence director was wrong when she testified before Congress in March, saying that Iran was not pursuing a nuclear weapon. Listen here.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Now, Gabbard responded on X, writing in part, quote, "The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks to months." Now, in that same testimony before Congress in March, Gabbard testified that Iran has an unprecedented amount of enriched uranium. And the White House is pointing to that as evidence that there's no daylight between her and the president in his view of Iran's capabilities in regards to her previous testimony. Trump is set to leave Bedminster for the White House later this afternoon. We'll send it back to you, Mike.
Nate.
All right, and as you can see from the Reuters article here, B-2 bombers moving to Guam amid Middle East tensions, U.S. officials say. And then if I go to the Israeli Air Force, the most recent post from them, roughly an hour ago, hour and a half, following the alerts that were activated regarding the intrusion of a hostile aircraft in Ramat, Magshimi, and Haspin, the Air Force intercepted an unmanned aerial vehicle that was launched from the east towards the territory of the State of Israel. So that happened roughly an hour and a half ago. And let's take a listen at what Agenda Free TV has to say.
Al Jazeera is reporting that their correspondent in Iran says that Iranian air defenses intercept hostile targets in Kashan and Isfahan, Iran. So the War Zone is a very good military news site. I am going to post a link in the chat to a War Zone article. They have a new article, B-2 bombers head west across Pacific amidst Iran crisis. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole article, but in the article, one thing they do is they assemble a bunch of this OSINT, open source intelligence stuff. People in the public who've been looking at the information they can gather publicly and drawing conclusions about it, and they post a bunch of that stuff in there, so you can look at that there. I want to mention some of the things that the War Zone said about the situation in the article, but I just posted a link. It's twz.com, and I just posted a link to the article in the chat, so you can check out the whole thing if you want. But I just want to mention a couple of things they said. They said it should be stressed here, there are no clear indications one way or the other that the B-2s are actively headed to conduct strikes on Iran. Okay? Although they can do so without forward basing. The War Zone says the fact that the B-2s refueled immediately after takeoff from Missouri could point to them at least having the bunker buster bombs on board, as the weight of those weapons requires some fuel to be sacrificed for departure. The War Zone also says positioning the B-2s even in Guam would still reduce the time for sorties, for bombing runs to and from Iran, which would in turn help the turnaround time for follow-on missions. Each of the stealth bombers can only carry 2 of the bunker busters at a time. Multiple of those bombs would be needed to neutralize Fordo. It's also important to note, says the War Zone, that the B-2s would conduct any strikes on Iran as part of a larger force package that would also include supporting assets to help shield the bombers from anti-air threats, as well as conduct post-strike damage assessments. Combat search and rescue forces would also be part of the equation. Okay. All right. Then they also said that multiple outlets like Reuters, NBC News, and the Wall Street Journal were reporting that those B-2s were indeed headed for Guam, but I haven't seen confirmation they're there. The possibility remains that all or some of the stealth bombers could continue onward to a location like Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Anyways, if you want to kind of read an article explaining the background of people, how it was figured out that those B-2s were taking off. Again, the Warzone article, I'm putting the link to it in the chat, twz.com. But we don't know, we don't even have to confirm those B-2s are involved in this Israel-Iran conflict thing. Maybe they're not. Also, maybe they're meant as to put pressure on, as like a bluff, to put pressure on Iran. Thanks, by the way, to Debbie Weeks and Schultzes and GTA Gun. Steven Steffi says expensive bluff. And if you missed it, Reuters was reporting today, we talked about this earlier, very interesting report from Reuters. Oh, they updated their B2, hold on. Did they update this article? What is this? Oh! Hey guys, we have a little video on the B-2 bomber story I can show you. I love that. Reuters had this article about the B-2 bombers, which we looked at earlier. B-2 bombers moving to Guam amid Middle East tensions, but we now have a video from them. So we're going to play that video right now on the B-2s. I think maybe with some video of the B-2s. All right, hold on a moment here. Let me pull this up on the screen for you. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Is it here? I turned the volume down because I'm going to put the video up. Here it is. Oh, nice, nice. The sound might be only in your left ear, the narration. Oh.
Alright, so it looks like he has footage of, I guess, the bombers taking off earlier today.
Look, we got a nice video about the B-2 situation. Look at that. Why does
This might be the same footage that Fox just showed us, but we'll take a brief look at it.
it say Haifa? I know why it says Haifa. I think I do. I think we're good.
In Israel's strikes against Iran. The bomber deployment was
I don't know why people can't get their audio correct with these videos.
relayed to Reuters on Saturday by 2 U.S. officials. It's unclear whether the move is tied to Middle East tensions. The B-2 can be equipped to carry America's 30,000-pound GBU-50.
So it's unclear if it's a direct connection to the Israel-Iran situation. So I don't know. I don't want to make any judgment here based on this. But you know, you can put two and two together based on your own position and your own thoughts? We've heard a lot about these bunker bombs and the planes that specifically could use or to drop them, the B-2s, and now we're seeing them move to Guam. Who's to know what they're actually going to do? Maybe it's just a posturing. Like, look, we're doing it, but we're not actually going to do it kind of thing, right? We're moving the planes, but we're not actually going to go and drop the bombs. Who knows what they're going to do? And as I've said many times, if they do it, we won't know until way after. We just won't.
57 massive ordnance penetrator designed to destroy targets deep underground. Experts say it could be used to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, including the deeply buried site at Fordow, the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear program. The officials declined to disclose any further details. The Pentagon did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Israel on Saturday said it had killed a veteran Iranian commander during attacks by both sides in the...
I can't listen to this video anymore. It's only coming through the left ear. That is absolutely trash.
Go to Diego Garcia.
So we got the skylines here. Throw that up for a second while I look for news.
So where do we go from here? Let's ask former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning. We greatly appreciate it. It's pretty clear that the situation continues to escalate right now. The Israeli military striking all across Iran, from their nuclear sites to their ballistic missile sites, military sites to individuals, to going after commanders and scientists. Your thoughts on what's been struck and this ongoing force moving forward, really softening things, if you will, as they continue to hit their targets?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to look at this in a couple of phases here. Before all this started in the last 10 days or so, Iran was very, very close to the ability to produce a nuclear bomb and possibly even connect that to a missile to be able to deliver it. So that has already been set back dramatically. It's going to take them a long time to reconstitute any kind of nuclear weapons capability. Now what the Israelis are doing is dramatically weakening the rest of the Iranian military forces. Because remember, they pose a regional threat. They've supported their proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis over time. So this is an effort to really weaken the Iranian power structures so that they present less of a threat in the future. There's nothing in this yet that prevents Iran from regrouping, even if it takes a few years. But Israel is really trying to impose as much penalty on Iran as possible, to set it back as long as possible, and to cause the regime to think, is it really worth going through billions of dollars of expenses again, only to have Israel destroyed again if they get close?
Yeah, when we talk about specifically the nuclear sites that have been hit, they've been talking the Iraq heavy water reactor and the Markazi process. There are a great number of different sites that have been struck related to their attempts to gain this technology. When you're talking about years potentially to regroup, what does it mean for the country right now, as this is an effort to discourage them from continuing this direction?
Right. Well, as you know, we have a radicalized Islamist regime in Iran, theocracy. They run a very harsh regime vis-a-vis the Iranian people. And there have been protests over decades by the Iranian people against the nature of the regime there. But they have run the country with an iron grip. What Israel is doing is loosening that grip a little bit because they are weakening the power structures of that government. Now, it is too early to say whether this creates an opening for the Iranian people to get control of their own government, but that is clearly something in the back of people's minds, that the Iranian regime is looking a lot less powerful than it looked a few weeks ago. And I think that is something that Israel is hoping for, and perhaps even the U.S. is keeping an eye on at this stage.
Yeah, I think you're raising a great point there. Mike Tobin was just reporting, showing some of the protesting in the streets that is occurring, anti-Israel protesting. But part of the goal also is to go after this internal security apparatus and to give the Iranian people the power to communicate with the world, to use the internet, to rise up if they so choose. Do you see that beginning?
We haven't seen it yet. I think there's a couple of factors here. One of them, the regime is, seriously trying to keep order and keep control in society. Those demonstrations that we saw the footage of, those are orchestrated by the regime itself. They're not spontaneous, and they're not anything that reflects the overall will of the people. But at the same time, there is a rally around the flag effect for any country. If they're being attacked, they tend to want those attacks to stop. They tend to support any government that's going to defend them. So we see a bit of that as well. But there's nothing that's going to cause these young Iranians, and it's a very young population, to believe that the theocracy in Iran is really the right leadership for them. So we are not seeing it yet, but I think, as you say, weakening the security apparatus and weakening the image of an indestructible Iranian state, that is quite important psychologically.
And the final question, the president heading back to the White House, he'll be talking about and weighing this decision that he said. He said it's a 2-week time frame. The United States reportedly considering potential strikes on the Fordo nuclear site. Your thoughts?
Well, as I look at President Trump, it seems to me that he really doesn't want to use U.S. military force. He doesn't want to get the U.S. involved in another war anywhere in the world. But he also, I think, sees the situation that has developed as a result of Israel's preemptive strikes. This is now a significant potential weakening of the regime, an opportunity to set back Iran's nuclear weapons program by many years if we really go after that deep underground Fordo facility. So I think he is really weighing the opportunity versus his instincts as to not to get involved.
All right, Kurt Volker, thank you very much for joining us and bringing us your expertise on this Saturday morning. Really appreciate it.
Been my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox.
Alrighty, that one kind of got away from me for a second there, but we're back at the skyline here, and guys, it's been like 24 hours, pretty much nothing. Not a single strike. People are claiming it could be the calm before the storm, as they call it, but let's hope that this is just simply the end. And no more strikes go either way. And Iran just F's off, which probably won't happen. Which means, the strikes are most likely going to continue. But as of the past 24 hours, nothing. Not too much. Go to the Israeli Air Force and see if they have shown anything. We have over 4 hours ago. They struck a F-14 fighter jet. They struck multiple fighter jets. So that is one of their latest strikes. But overall, the last thing that has come from them was that interception of a unmanned aerial vehicle.
There's Diego Garcia, which is down there. and then Iran is up here. So still about 2,800 miles away or whatever, but a lot closer than Missouri or Guam.
Lucas Tomlinson, live at the White House with more on all of that. Lucas.
And John, the key word from the president there is within 2 weeks. Now, the president has ordered B-2 stealth bombers to launch from Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri. They are currently on their way to the U.S. island territory of Guam in the Western Pacific, all part of President Trump's likely negotiating strategy with Iran to get them to stop enriching uranium, a key component to make nuclear weapons. Here was the president yesterday.
We'll see what happens.
What was the thought process behind 2 week timetable?
Just a time to see whether or not people come to their senses. Giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Now, speaking of distance, John, the distance between Tel Aviv and Tehran is about the same distance between Minneapolis and New York. These B-2s you see launching from Whiteman Air Force Base is file footage, of course, much longer distance. And around 11 a.m. Eastern time, the two formations of B-2s refueled near Hawaii on their way to Guam. It's notable after taking off from Whiteman in Missouri, they were refueled by a group of tankers, a sign they were carrying those heavy 15-ton bunker-busting bombs. Each B-2 can carry 2 of them. American fighter jets, including 5th-generation F-22s, are also headed to the Middle East, which could serve as escorts, could also strike targets in Iran themselves if ordered. And I stress if ordered, John, because if President Trump orders a strike on Iran's uranium enrichment site of Fordo, buried deep underground 2 hours south of Tehran, it might require more than one strike. Here's the former head of U.S. Forces in the Middle East, General Joe Votel, who commanded the U.S. Central Command when U.S. forces defeated ISIS. So he will know.
We don't just ever drop bombs and then forget about it. We assess, we look at we make assessments on the damage we've done, and then oftentimes we reattack. And so it's likely that we will need to do this.
General Votel saying more than one strike might be necessary to strike Fordo. Now, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee is urging President Trump not to strike.
Think the U.S. should get directly involved in this conflict. We have bases in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Iraq, UAE, and even some troops in Syria. And those proxy forces could very aggressively target U.S. interests.
And President Trump is returning to the White House. He will land on the South Lawn and have a meeting of his national security team inside the White House at 6 p.m. Eastern, likely weighing whether to strike Iran. John?
So 2 weeks is the president's self-imposed deadline or time limit, if you will, Lucas.
Within 2 weeks, John, is what the president said. That's why there were a lot of people watching this formation of 2 groups of B-2 bombers leaving Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, going to Guam. That could be a staging area for a potential strike. It does appear that this would be the go, no-go site for any potential strike in Iran, using the B-2 bombers. And, of course, you can't forget those fighter jets that have left the United States, including the F-22s from Langley, Virginia, that went to the United Kingdom, and now they're in the Middle East. We've also seen some jets leave some bases in the Middle East in Qatar, and next door in the United Arab Emirates. Some of those jets have left. We're seeing a big buildup in Saudi Arabia, though, John.
B-2 stealth bombers appear headed from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri to a base in Guam, as President Trump weighs possible U.S. involvement in the war between Israel and Iran. It is now week 2 of Israel and Iran trading strikes. Meantime, the first talks on Iran's nukes since the warfare began were held in Geneva, but no breakthrough. So all eyes turn to Washington. President Trump heads back to the White House tonight for a security briefing after saying he'll decide in 2 weeks whether our forces join Israel's. Good afternoon. I'm John Scott, and this is the Fox Report. Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick is standing by on possible U.S. involvement in the Middle East. But first, Fox team coverage. Lucas Tomlinson is at the White House for us. But we begin with senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palkot. He's live in Tel Aviv right now. Greg.
Hi, John. Yeah, it's nighttime here in Tel Aviv, and officials are on high alert for any new attacks. As we saw last night, Iran seems to prefer darkness for its dirty work. 5 Iranian missiles were launched. All were shot down by Israel's anti-missile defenses. This is Israeli jets today pummeled the Isfahan nuclear facility. The IAEA confirms damage to the centrifuge construction facility. The IDF says, in addition, they've been hitting Iran's military infrastructure in the southwest part of that country. There's also another assassination by Israel today. This time, Saeed Izzadi was killed. He was a Revolutionary Guard commander who played a key role in the deadly October 7th Hamas attack against Israel. And the IDF says it shot down all but one of 40 Iranian drones headed towards Israel this morning. Tehran has had less success with these relatively slow-moving projectiles. Meanwhile, the U.S. is joining other countries in getting its citizens out of Israel. There was a military flight yesterday of some 79 embassy staff and families. Ambassador Huckabee today reaching out in a post to any other Americans interested in leaving. John, this as reports increase of U.S. military buildup here in the region and the movement a bit closer to the area of those B-2 stealth bombers. They are key to any step up of American involvement in this crisis. Back to you.
One of the questions, Greg, which maybe nobody has an answer to, including yourself, is how many of those ballistic missiles does Iran have left in its arsenal? We know the Israelis have tried to take out as many as they can.
That's a good question indeed, John. There are a couple of thousand, it is believed, left in the arsenal of Iran, but also being taken out are the missile launchers by Israel. And if you don't have the launchers, you can't fire the missiles. So Israel is working on a couple of different sides, a couple of different ways to limit the damage from Iran, but they still can pack a punch right now.
Give us a sense, Greg, of the mood of the Israeli people. I mean, they're hearing these sirens just about every night, it would seem.
Yeah, we've been through it in the past several days since we've been here. You get an alert on your phone. That means the missiles have been fired from Iran heading towards Israel. It takes about 12 minutes for these missiles to get here. So there is enough time to get to shelters and protect yourself. And that's exactly what most of the folks here in Israel are doing. But this happens once, twice, maybe 3 times a day and night. It is getting wearing on these people. Even if they are not always in harm's way, it certainly is wearing down the psyche of the people here in Israel. And I must add, there's a lot of damage being done in Iran as well. The people there feeling it very hard too.
Yeah, 12 minutes doesn't seem like a lot of time to, save your life. Greg Palkot reporting live from Tel Aviv.
U.S. has bombed 3 different.
Whoa, okay. Whoa, guys. Holy, hold on. This just happened.
Now is the time to worry. Nuclear site. Look at this. Breaking news. Huge. Look at this. Oh my gosh, we have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan.
Holy crap, guys, they did it.
All planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. Breaking news. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All planes are safely on their way home. Oh my gosh. Huge. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Oh my gosh. Huge, huge news. Huge news, huge news, huge news. Breaking news. U.S. bombs. U.S. enters war, bombs Fordo, Natanz, and bombs Fordo and other nuclear sites in Iran. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow. Breaking news. Huge news. Well, I think I'm going to have to change the title of the broadcast.
Holy crap, guys. They actually did it, didn't they? That's his Truth Social. Let's see here. Trump Truth Social. What was that, 3 minutes or so ago? Oh, is he actually gonna make me... Oh, right here. 4 minutes ago. Holy crap. Like I said, we wouldn't know until it's happened and already over. I said it numerous times. Numerous times. Holy crap, guys. Bordeaux, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. I'm going to leave this on the screen for like the rest of the stream now. Might as well until anything happens. Because this is huge. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congrats to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
If you want to say that, oh, they're not entering the war, they're just bombing several sites in Iran, to me, they've entered the war. I mean, this was what entering the war was talked about. All right, let me just post also on our social media that we're covering this. Okay, thanks for your patience. Take 2 minutes to do this now, and then I don't have to do it again. But got to let people know. Oh my gosh, I got to read this again. All of a sudden, President Trump, we have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. Bunker busters, all planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. Now, there is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. He says now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now is the time for peace. One of our viewers said 2 weeks was just a bluff. Oh, Konstantin Toropin, who is a Pentagon reporter, he's with CNN. He says there is silence right now so far from the Pentagon. No comment from the Pentagon yet. And one official, when asked, directed me back to Donald Trump's post. All right. Elint News, who I follow, thinks that the B-2s to Guam were a diversion and that other B-2s might have taken off towards Iran. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I am looking for other updates. Yes, this is real. This is real. This is real. It's a real post. It is real. This is a real post. This is true. He really posted it.
He did. I just had his Truth Social up. I just had it up.
It is
really
not fake.
did. He really did put this out.
It's pretty stunning to hear this all of a sudden. Wow. Wow. Guys, wow. All right, well, there's going to be a lot to cover now. I probably should have eaten earlier. Now, there's one more thing I'd like to do. Well, I'm not going to do it now. Anyways. Wow. I don't even know what to say. And it wasn't just Fordo. It was 3 places. Yeah, not eating now. Well. All right. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Shine Morris says this is serious. I'm just stunned. I did not expect to just have this presented to us all at once. So it's just stunning. It's just stunning. I'm trying to process it.
What happens next? That's the main question. I'm stumbling over my words right now because I'm trying to figure out anything at this point, any sort of news, any sort of word from anybody other than Trump and Truth Social. Let's see. I'm pulling up his Truth Social again, one more time here. Hey, it's not even loading now. Oh my goodness.
Thomas Massey just posted, "This is not constitutional." My name says, "Can't declare war without Congress." This is, 3 nuclear sites. Should I not have U.S. enters war on the headline? Does it confuse people? I mean, to me, they've entered the war. I mean, they literally went in, and Israel has been attacking Iran. So now the U.S. in the middle of that went in and bombed 3 different sites that Israel wanted to bomb. So they haven't said, I mean, Trump hasn't said we're in the war, but I feel like they've entered the war. I mean, this is what everybody's been talking about for a week. Will the U.S. enter the war? And the entering the war was bombing Fordo. So, I don't know. They didn't just bomb Fordo and other nuclear sites randomly. They did it because Israel was already underway with this campaign. Hold on a second. B-2 bombers were used. Reuters is reporting, Phil Stewart from Reuters, B-2 bombers, which is what we were expecting, were used in the strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. I got to also check. I want to pull up. I need about 10 seconds. I need about 10 seconds. Hang on.
All right, guys. So that post on the screen right now is the latest word from Donald Trump confirming that they have successfully attacked 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. This is major news. This is fucking massive news. Holy crap.
In the title of the broadcast, but for this, for simplicity's sake, we'll just do, there we go. Wow. Just got announced on Truth Social. He announced it on Truth Social. Truth Social is not working. Hey guys, Truth Social is not working. Is there any chance at all that was a fake post? Is there any chance he got hacked? Is there any chance he got hacked or it's overloaded? I'm going to assume he didn't get hacked. Truth Social appears to be down. Look, Truth Social. Sorry, no, you can't. Hold on. You'll see in a second. Right here. Oh, he tweeted it too? People are saying he tweeted it too. I got to check. Anyways, Truth Social is not working right now, it appears. So, hang on. Hold on a second here. Give me a moment. I'm going to his Twitter. Yes, it is posted on his Twitter as well. So somebody would have had to hack his Twitter and his Truth Social, which I'm guessing didn't happen. Could you imagine if it was only on Truth Social and it turned out it was a hack? Could you imagine that? Anyways, yes, it is on his X page, not Twitter. His X page has it as well. Lindsey Graham has posted. Senator Lindsey Graham says, oops, hold on a second. Let me fix this. Let me do something real quick. Oh, this will do it. One moment. Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, says, good, this was the right call. The regime deserves it. Well done, President Trump. To my fellow citizens, we have the best Air Force in the world. It makes me so proud. Fly, fight, win. Faytux News points out that there's nothing yet in Iranian state media. Let me see. Well, ISNA is an Iranian media outlet, and they are posting about it, but they don't have any comment on it. Tasneem, yes, Tasneem is Iranian state media. They are reporting it. They're saying U.S. aggressive attack on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. I'm not hearing any commentary from the Iranian state media, but Iranian state media has started to report on it. Hang on. So I'm just trying to get you the latest updates here. I mean, this is all of a sudden to hear this. Wow. Wow. Maybe I'll move this up a little bit. Barak Ravid reports with Axios that he says that, well, B-2 bombers were used. Israeli official. The U.S. informed Israel in advance about the attack on Iran and the matter was coordinated. I'm not really I would be surprised if they hadn't coordinated it. Wow. Is Truth Social still not working? Truth Social is still not working, it seems like.
Local federal law enforcement in conjunction with the intelligence community needs to be focused on right now.
Dan, is that what your most focus would be as far as retaliation? Obviously, Israel's done a great job already laying the groundwork, going after Hezbollah with the pager attack and the walkie-talkies, obviously diminishing the leadership in both Hezbollah and Hamas. They've taken out senior leaders inside Iran. So the proxies, at least, are weakened. But is that the retaliation that you would be thinking about now?
That's some of the potential retaliation I'd be worried about. But look, let's remember that the Iranians tried to kill the Saudi ambassador here in Washington, D.C. and Georgetown. They certainly have made use of sleeper cells in the past, and that's why I think we need to be on high alert for the possibility that Iran might seek to target U.S. diplomatic installations overseas or potentially here in the homeland. And that's why intelligence collection is so important, so we can detect those threats way out left of boom and then preempt them before any harm is caused to our civilians. I would also highlight that Iran has hosted the leader of al-Qaeda, Saif al-Adil, for years. He's been traveling between Iran and Afghanistan. Thanks to the Biden administration's chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, al-Qaeda and ISIS enjoy the sort of open field running that they haven't had since before 9/11, and so they can plot and plan against us. Iran has always had an odd but symbiotic relationship with al-Qaeda, and I'd be worried about that potential for a terrorist attack as well.
All right, stand by if you would, Dan. Let's turn to Brett Velikovich. He's a former Delta operator, special operations soldier, drone expert. Brett, your thoughts on this night and what we may see at first light?
Well, my first thoughts, Brett, are the president made the right call. The time is now, and I'm glad the president made the decision. And I'm sure it wasn't an easy one, but the reality is talk doesn't work in that region. If talk was the option and writing nice letters to the mullahs and the Ayatollah to get them to stop their nuclear ambitions, we would have done that. But that's not the way this region thinks. The region only understands power, strength, decisive military action, and kudos to the president. It sounds like he also pulled off a pretty impressive military deception strategy. He didn't need 2 weeks to determine to strike. Iran already had years to fix their problems, and I don't think he thought he actually needed 2 weeks, and it was designed to kind of throw them off guard and conduct one of these strikes. And we're going to see what's going to happen, when the dust settles and the intel that results from it. It seems that we were starting to see some escalation from Iran to try and continue the fight by launching more lethal drones against Israel, against our bases. But it doesn't need to be that way from the Iranian side, Brett. After this strike, they have run out of really any strong options to fight back. Their leaders need to come to terms that their time's up. They've already lost. Their country is collapsing. Iran can do the right thing for once and stop supporting terrorism through its proxies and actually come back to the nuclear negotiation table. And if the hardliners at the top of that regime don't get it now, they're going to lose their country. That's the bottom line. The Israelis know the precise location of where they all are, and they're going to continue to pick them off one by one. And, my guess, was the president wanted to try and maximize pressure before fully going in lethal. That's why we saw the U.S. B-2 bombers getting positioned in the region. That was a big message in and of itself. That was an extraordinary show of force. If he conducted this strike, if he made the decision, it was because all other efforts to stop them from building a nuclear bomb have failed. And he should have a clear conscience that he did everything he could to get them to change their evil ways peacefully first.
Brett, last thing I wanted we haven't heard from the Supreme Leader for a couple of days. We're told by Israelis that he is holed up in a bunker, that the defense minister, after the hospital strike, Iran's missiles hitting an Israeli hospital, suggested that he would now be a target, the Supreme Leader. There were a number of reports that President Trump kind of put the kibosh on targeting the Supreme Leader a number of days ago. What about the opposition on the ground in Iran? How much do we know? Obviously, we saw the Green Revolution in 2009 that was put down by the Iranians, not really supported by the Obama administration. But what do we know about the possibility of an uprising to take over the leadership in Iran?
Well, I think in the end, we're not going to be able to create full-on regime change. It's going to have to be the Iranian people themselves. It's, the moderate Iranians. They're going to have to rise up and actually do something. The moderate Iranians, they want peace. They want to have better relationships with the Western world, and we need to sort of help them, give them the time and space to be able to do that.
Crazy, crazy stuff. If you guys are joining right now, the U.S. has just carried out 3 successful strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. Right now, we are looking at a live view of Jerusalem, Haifa, and Tel Aviv.
All right, for whatever reason, I am having issues with Truth Social, but I am seeing that Trump has posted on Truth Social. So here it is. Faye Tux News posted it. I'll pull it up on my phone just to make sure. I'm going to confirm it on my phone because it's not working on my desktop. Oh, no, it's not working on my phone either. I think maybe they threw me off of Truth Social. Anyways, Faye Tux News posted it. I will be giving an address to the nation at 10 p.m. at the White House regarding our very successful military operation in Iran. This is an historic moment for the United States of America, Israel, and the world. Iran must now agree to end this war. And that Iran must now agree to end this war, he says. A number of our viewers saying they are not, Truth Social is not working for them either. It's working for some people. It's not working for me. It's not working for a bunch of you. Now, he says Iran must end the war. Now, just to be clear, this started when Israel launched an attack on Iran's nuclear sites. But I guess the implication, so it's a little confused. I guess he's saying that Iran needs to agree to American and Israeli terms. Or what? So what's the idea? If Iran doesn't agree to American and Israeli terms, then there's going to be more bombing? Maybe? I'm not sure. We'll see what he says. One of our viewers thinks Iran is blocking Truth Social. Oh, Carolyn Levitt posted his post as well. All right, now I gotta put a second thing on the screen. No, I'm gonna leave that up. But again, President Trump is speaking at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Oh, hold on. Let me do this. Trump to address nation at 10 p.m. ET. Should I put the red ticker up? Well, I don't want to get in the way of the video. I'll do that. Wow. Wow.
This is a Fox News alert. News from the President of the United States that there has been an attack inside Iran. Just moments ago, President Donald Trump putting out on Truth Social, we have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. Again, this from President Donald Trump. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, that's just seconds ago from President Donald Trump on Truth Social, suggesting that those B-2 bombers that perhaps were on the way may have been behind this. We'll get more details on these 3 sites that the president said has been attacked inside Iran. This comes after days of negotiations to try to get Iran to the negotiating table. The President of the United States saying it would have to be unconditional surrender, saying enrichment would have to stop. We heard from negotiations in Europe that that was not being accepted by the Iranians, that they would not stop enriching uranium. There was a thought that this could go as long as 2 weeks. As the president said, he would decide within 2 weeks. However, 2 days is within 2 weeks. And now word from President Donald Trump that these attacks have happened. Again, interesting that 3 sites have been struck by U.S. bombers. And this, again, we'll get more information about the exact targets and what bombs were used. We expect that the GBU-57, the bunker buster, the massive penetrator bomb, may have been one of those used. Fordo is a nuclear facility inside Iran that is roughly a half-mile deep underneath a rock mountain-like facility that has been said to be the site of a lot of the enrichment capability. Esfahan, believed to be a storage facility for enriched uranium, and Natanz, another part of the nuclear facilities. They have several throughout Iran. It has been long described as a very difficult and tedious effort to go after these nuclear sites, but the U.S., for the first time, launching an attack inside Iran. Again, the President of the United States saying all of the planes are out of Iranian airspace. The bombings do continue by the Israelis inside Iran as this back-and-forth volley between Israel and Iran has continued for some 2 weeks. We expect to hear more about this operation, not only from the Pentagon, but perhaps from the White House, although the White House this evening, has called a lid, as far as meaning no one will talk after that. That may be changing now. Obviously, we have this Truth Social post from President Donald Trump.
What a crazy situation. That video ended very, very abruptly. There was no outro or anything. Yeah, it looks like Truth Social is completely down. Whenever I try to open it, it doesn't load literally anything. I had the initial tweet or truth or message up.
Stars.
But it seems like I can't get it back up. There is the message that he put out, the statement. And apparently at 10 p.m., he's going to address the nation. Holy crap. Wild times.
Our ex-moderators, Linda Belk, Larry, Misha, thank you so much. Let's just keep getting you updates here. What's Iran, or what is the Iranian response going to be to this? I still can't get Truth Social to work.
Safer place. Gallant is one of the men who planned the Israeli strikes against these nuclear programs in Iran. And we spoke with him earlier in the week. He called on President Trump to take this decisive action because it would stabilize, in his words, the region. There's an understanding that Iran was getting closer and closer to a nuclear weapon. We saw the statements before the Israelis decided to strike these facilities about there was real concern from the International Atomic Energy Agency regarding Iranian enrichment of uranium at a purity level that was closer and closer to weapons-grade material. And President Trump taking this action tonight to not only target the Fordow nuclear facility outside of the Iranian capital, deep underground, but also Isfahan and Natanz. This effectively destroys Iran's capability to enrich uranium. at this level that they would need. There are thousands of centrifuges in these sites, and the fact that the Americans have the bombs and have decided to use them to strike deep underground puts Iran in a position where at some point it will have to make a decision about the future of this regime, because the Israelis went after many of the air defense systems around these nuclear sites. They went after the sites that they could target with the fighter jets that they have. We talked with those Israeli pilots earlier in the week, and now tonight President Trump ordering this strike, importantly against the Fordow nuclear facility deep underground, very close to the Iranian capital of Tehran, indicating that this strike will not only damage but likely destroy, if successful, Iran's nuclear program and their ability to go and get closer and closer to a nuclear weapon. We expect to get more reaction from Israeli officials tonight, Brett, about this key strike that will change the course of the Middle East forever, and also what they believe the Iranian response will be, if any, to these strikes. The Iranians still have the capability to strike Israel with their ballistic missiles. We know, according to Israeli officials, that around 2/3 of these launchers have been taken out. But this really illustrates the concern for Israel and the United States when you look at Iran's nuclear program. According to officials, they were weeks away from creating a nuclear bomb. We saw over the past 9 days that Iran has the capability to fire ballistic missiles into Israeli population centers. And so if you put those two pieces together and the Iranians were able to create a nuclear warhead that they could attach to a ballistic missile, it was placing Israel in a position where they could come under legitimate attack from a nuclear weapon in a matter of weeks, if not months. And so President Trump taking this decision tonight takes that threat off the table. And it charts a new path for the region. We are in uncharted territory right now. American planes have bombed Iranian nuclear facilities, and they have now placed the Iranian regime in a position where they will have to make serious decisions about any sort of response against Israel and what they want to do in the future about attacking American interests or the Israelis directly. We know there are American interests not only in the Red Sea, but in places like Iraq with the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Qatar. And the Iranians have threatened all of these interests. They have launched campaigns not only against the Americans in the region, but of course Israel through their proxies like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, who they have armed and trained, Hamas and Islamic Jihad inside Gaza, and then of course these Iran-backed Iraqi and Syrian Shia militias. President Trump tonight, by striking the nuclear facilities, has now put Iran in a corner. They have to make a decision about what they want the future of the region to look like. And he's made very clear that there is an opportunity now for peace following these strikes. Whether or not the Iranians will take it, that's up to them. Brett?
All right, Trey, thank you. Stand by. The President of the United States will address the nation tonight from the White House, getting word on Truth Social again. The President saying, I'll be giving an address at 10 p.m. Eastern Time at the White House regarding our very successful military operation in Iran. This is an historic moment for the United States of America, Israel, and the world. Iran must now agree to end this war. Thank you. Just noting that the President will be giving this address tonight at 10 p.m. You'll see that live, of course, here on Fox News.
And you'll see it live right here because I'm not going anywhere right now. I am staying right here at the moment. Holy crap, guys. We gotta keep a very close eye on the skylines of Israel now, because after that announcement, I can only assume Iranian government or media or whatever has seen that. This is going viral across everything, every single platform. He's even put it up on Twitter. Twitter or X, whatever the fuck you want to call it. He's put it up on that as well. The statement of the 3 successful strikes.
General, what's the biggest concern in your eyes after this, knowing for years we've studied Iran and what they may or may not do in response to an attack on their nuclear facilities? What are your thoughts tonight?
Well, my thoughts are with our troops that are in the region and their safety, obviously, with the number of American bases there that can be targeted by the Iranians. However, they're prepared for that, and that's a good thing. My concern is with Iran having a lot of capability, a lot of military capability still. They have a population of 85 million people. If they say we are not going to surrender and we're not going to stop, that's a dilemma to an extent. Ideally, they will take this and they will sue for peace and we can move forward in that region. But if they decide to do what I would say something stupid, like mine and close the Straits of Hormuz, or attack our bases, that will force us to do other actions against Iran. And Iran will eventually be destroyed. And how long will that take? But my concerns right now are really for our troops that are in the region that are within arm's reach, really, of Iran.
Okay. General Pittard, thank you very much. Just in from the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune. The regime in Iran, which has committed itself to bringing death to America and wiping Israel off the face of the map, has rejected all diplomatic pathways to peace. The mullah's misguided pursuit of nuclear weapons must be stopped. Senate Majority Leader Thune continues, as we take action tonight to ensure a nuclear weapon remains out of reach for Iran, I stand with President Trump and pray for the American troops and personnel in harm's way. Just moments ago, the president shared or reposted on his Truth Social a sentence from an open source that said Fordo is gone. We'll go back to Jen Griffin at the Pentagon. What else are you working, Jen?
Well, Brett, I think we have to look back at the news that broke earlier today, those 6 B-2 bombers that were heading west towards Guam. They would not have made it to Iran in time to take part in this strike. So that suggests to me that there was an additional B-2 package that perhaps flew eastward from Whiteman Air Force Base. Again, this was all part of the deception. There was a great deal of sort of misleading tidbits put out there to suggest that maybe President Trump had put off the decision and that this would happen 2 weeks from now. But as we knew, there were other indications, and we did not report earlier this week, even though we knew that Whiteman Air Force Base had put out a notice suggesting that the base was closed for so-called repairs until Monday, June 23rd. Now, if you look at the time frame of where we are right now, those B-2s would be home at Whiteman by the time that notice and that would be lifted on Monday, June 23rd. So that was put out a week ago, and so we should have had some clue that this might have been some indication of the time frame. That being said, there were a lot of people. Everyone was looking west, and it is possible that these B-2s actually flew east, and they used those refuelers that we've talked about. Now, if we also look at the number of sites, there were 3 sites. We know that B-2s at least would fly most likely in pairs, and so you would have had at least 4 massive ordnance penetrators, those 30,000-pound bombs dropped on the Fordo site. You could have had other B-2s engaged in Natanz as well as Isfahan.
Iran had evacuated the 3 nuclear sites some time ago. I don't know if that's true. That's what state media is saying in Iran. I kind of want to post the other post that he posted. Well, I'm going to leave that up there right now. Maybe I'll leave that up there right now. Unbelievable. What's going to happen next? Senator Tom Cotton, Republican, posted. Here is what Senator Tom Cotton had to say. Tom Cotton says, Iran has waged a war of terror against the U.S. for 46 years. We could never allow Iran to get nuclear weapons. God bless our brave troops. President Trump made the right call, and the Ayatollahs should recall his warning not to target Americans. Jake says, nobody even knows what to say. The whole world is shook. Senator Roger Wicker posted and said, he's a Republican, I believe, Roger Wicker. Yes. Our commander-in-chief has made a deliberate and correct decision to eliminate the existential threat posed by the Iranian regime. We now have very serious choices ahead to provide security for our citizens and our allies and stability for the Middle East. Well done to our military personnel. You're the best. At some point, there will be videos. There's definitely going to be satellite footage of this. I would not be surprised at all if the U.S. has video footage of these attacks on these targets. President Trump will be speaking in 1 hour and 19 minutes. 1 hour and 19 minutes. Yeah, one of our viewers said, how's Russia going to react? How's everybody going to react? I still can't. Oh, True Social is now working again for me. President Trump reposted a post 36. I know a bunch of you know this. President Trump reposted a post 36 minutes ago from somebody else that just said Fordo is gone. So he reposted that, and he posted here, you can see, I will be giving an address to the nation at 10 p.m. at the White House regarding our very successful military operation in Iran. This is an historic moment for the U.S. of the United States of America, Israel, and the world. Iran must now agree to end this war. He says, Iran must agree to end this war. Thank you. Yes, of course, we will definitely have the speech. Yeah, one of our viewers said if they don't, yeah, it's not clear to me what happens next. If Iran, I guess, doesn't, I don't know what they need to do to end the war specifically. That hasn't been said. If there are certain things they need to agree to, and if they don't, what happens? Wow. What's going to happen now? I have no idea where this is all going. I have no idea where this is all going. And I don't think anyone does, because first of all, nobody knows how Iran is going to react. And not just tomorrow, long term. Let me say a couple quick thank yous, really quick, because I want to get back to the news. I'm not going to be able to thank everybody, I don't think, but really quick. Floppy Discus, Sweet Sassy Molassy, Tallulah Abel, Dream Squad HD, Serena, Red Squirrel, Brian Carter, Zach Hudson, Greg Berry, MVT Hoft, Just Mike, Kate89, Regular Joe, Street Guru, John Oliver, Lee Salmonen, Julius, Brad Boda, Louis Bilbrout, Scrappy O, a couple more, Portex 7, Star-Lord, Sean, Eminar, Barb Mac, Alex Glans, BZRN, Zach Hudson, Machiavelli Sucks, AMT, NMCT, Mitchell Pilot, Shackle Text, TMS, Salamander Wilds, John Root, Tubular Mindwave, William C. Pineapple Water, Nah, Joshua, Anthony Childers, Karzar, J-Man, Timothy Creed, YKA, Robert Farrow, a few more, Andrew Devon.
All right, let's see what's going on the skyline here. The big news that has just came out. The 3 Iranian nuclear facilities have officially been hit by the US. Absolutely crazy.
here in Tel Aviv and across this country. But as you know, Sean, over the past 9 days, Israel has come under serious attack from Iranian ballistic missiles, targeting not only residential areas in big cities like Tel Aviv, Israel's second largest city, but also recently targeting an Israeli hospital. The Iranians have gone after Israeli civilians, while the Israelis have targeted with precision strikes both nuclear facilities, military officials from the IRGC, and top Iranian nuclear scientists. But again, the latest information that we have tonight, President Trump ordering these strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities, and the Israelis are now bracing for the possibility of an Iranian response. Israel's Home Front Command has just released a statement restricting activities for civilians tomorrow. Workplaces will be closed, people will not be in schools, and there's a directive to the civilian population of Israel to stay close to bomb shelters, understanding that the Iranians still have ballistic missile capabilities and they can use them to target major population centers here in Israel. Sean?
That's an important admonition. There's no such thing as a military effort, Trey, that does not have risk associated with it. We talked about this all week in the lead up to this day, in the possibility that this may happen. And obviously the president is certainly, I'm sure, very well aware. There's been a lot of evacuations around the region on top of fortification. All of the military might of the U.S. Navy and other armed services are in the area in case such a retaliation were to take place. And clearly they are prepared for such. But after today, you have to wonder if the Iranian Supreme Leader got the message or not. Time will tell. Trey Yangst on the ground in Israel.
I would say probably not, but well, like he said, only time will tell.
Stay with us. We'll get back to you throughout this hour. Here with more details from tonight's very critical strike, along with what we can expect moving forward. Jennifer Griffin, she is in the Pentagon tonight. Jennifer, what's amazing, I did have an opportunity just minutes before coming on the air to speak to the president. We had initially discussed, both of us this week, that it would probably take at the Fordo facility as many as 2 bunker buster bombs. I can confirm it was 6 bunker buster bombs that were used in that one, on that one fortified, deeply buried inside that mountain site, the one that everybody worried about, the one that Israel was not going to be capable of taking out unless they went nuclear.
Well, that's right, Sean, and it's very interesting that the president shared with you that 6 of those MOP, massive ordnance penetrator, the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs, were used on Fordo. That would mean that you would have had at least 3 B-2 bombers dropping those, because each of the B-2s can carry 2 of those MOP bombs. Based on my assessment and what I know about Fordo, there are 2 entrances to Fordo, so you may have had 2 bunker busters in each of the entrances. The way they work, as we've discussed in the past, Sean, is that one of the MOP bombs drops in and can penetrate about 200 feet underground. It makes about a 25-foot radius hole into the ground, and then the second bomb dropped from the B-2 bomber will penetrate that exact spot and go even further. And Fordo, as we know, is about 300 feet underground. I suspect that the third spot that was hit at Fordo, based on the structure of that facility, that underground nuclear facility in the mountain there, is a ventilation shaft that is very prominent. And if you dropped 2 bunker buster bombs of those MOP 30,000-pound bombs through the ventilation shaft, that would be another way to reach deep underground and to ensure that you destroyed that facility 300 feet underground. I think it's also notable, Sean, that the president told you that TLAMs, or Tomahawk missiles, were used in the strike on Natanz. Natanz also has an underground facility. Those Tomahawks would have been fired, as you mentioned, from submarines that were attached to either the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier strike group or the USS Nimitz, which was newly in the region. It had steamed all the way from the Pacific, and we understand that it arrived in the CENTCOM AOR earlier today. So those Tomahawks could be fired from any number of locations from those aircraft carriers. And then you have Isfahan. Isfahan is an above-ground.
So in about an hour, 50 minutes, we have Trump addressing the nation.
Can we get her up and we can talk through what we're hearing from military sources? Jennifer Griffin is live at the Pentagon. Let's bring Jennifer in. Jennifer, we're just getting word, obviously, with the president's announcement, what this looks like.
Well, Brett, we knew that there was something afoot this morning when we woke and heard that there were 6 B-2 bombers that had been seen leaving Whiteman Air Force Base last night at midnight. And so those planes, we were told, were heading towards Guam. Now, Guam would have been an 18-hour flight into Iran, so it is likely that it was a different set of B-2 bombers that were used to bomb the sites, the 3 sites that the president mentioned tonight on Truth Social. That is the Fordo complex, which we've been watching all week. That is the massive main, sort of what's known as the heart or the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear program. It's underneath that mountain just outside of Qom, which is 2 hours south of Tehran. That complex, we understand, has been bombed by those U.S. B-2 bombers tonight. Also, Isfahan, as well as Natanz. Natanz had another underground facility. Remember, before Fordo was built in 2006, Natanz had been the main enrichment site. It was also built underground. Israeli jets had been targeting it in the last week, but they had not been able to penetrate underground. So those U.S. B-2 bombers, which flew out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, they would have taken out that underground facility. Natanz is interesting. You'll remember, Brett, it was the site of the Stuxnet virus, the cyber attack on those centrifuges years ago. But again, it was back up and running. And what is surprising, I think, tonight is that the president announced that it was not 1 site, but 3 underground sites and sites inside Iran's nuclear program that were struck by the U.S. Air Force tonight.
Yeah, and it is something. We'll go back to that Truth Social and eventually control room, if we can put it up there just so that everybody can see it on the screen. The fact that this, first of all, this announcement comes from Truth Social. This is a president who has put out a lot of announcements, big announcements through Truth Social, and this is the biggest of them, probably his biggest decision. The very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites, as you said, Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan, getting very specific there. And the payload, he says a full payload of bombs dropped on the primary site, Fordo. That suggests, Jennifer, as we had been saying for many days, that they may have made several passes at Fordo, considering that the experts were saying that just 1 probably wouldn't have gotten to the heart of that facility.
Well, remember, Brett, we've been reporting in recent days that Fordo is interesting because it has 2 entrance points. And we were told by experts who have followed the planning for this kind of strike for a long time that it would take at least 2 bombs from the B-2s, those MOPs, the massive ordnance penetrators. Those are 30,000-pound bombs, and each B-2 can carry 2 of them. Usually the way it works is that one of the MOP 30,000-pound bunker buster is dropped. It goes into a hole that's about a radius of about 25 feet, I'm told, and then the second bomb is dropped in the same hole. And so at first, that 30,000-pound bunker buster will go down about 200 feet, explode, and then make way for the second bomb, which falls into that exact 25-foot radius hole. And, of course, people are calling right now, so just a moment. And so what's interesting about it, Brett, is that you would have had to have at least 2 B-2s, but I believe that it was likely a package of 6 B-2s that would be flying. They each had 2 MOP massive ordnance penetrators on board at the time, and they would have hit both those entrances at Fordo. The president saying that Fordo, that the
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Opportunity. As he said, he doesn't have a problem with the people of Iran, but they were never going to have nuclear weapons. We went back and looked. The first time he said that was in 2011. And he had been very, very consistent in his statement about that. And, you know, other early indications, too, is that he gave them, there was a little note at the end of his statement tonight that he's willing to discuss peace again. And then that creates now a dilemma, once again, for the supreme leader of Iran. Will he remain stubborn to the point where their refineries will be targeted next, where their gas grid will be targeted next, and they'll have no power? If they take out the refineries, they'll have no economy in Iran. So big decisions on their part tonight, things they should be thinking about if they're thinking about any retaliation. Jennifer Griffin, we'll get back to you. We appreciate your report, and God bless our military. Incredible feat that they were able to accomplish tonight. We bring in now Lucas Tomlinson. He is live outside the White House tonight. Lucas, I'm sure probably a lot of activity in there.
There's no question, Sean. We're about 45 minutes away from President Trump addressing the nation from the White House after those unprecedented strikes against Iran's nuclear enrichment sites, 3 in all in Isfahan, Fordo, and Natanz. And you mentioned the 6 bunker-busting bombs, Sean, that the president told you about. That means 3 B-2 bombers were involved in the strikes tonight, because each B-2 bomber can only carry 2 of those 15-ton bunker-busting bombs. So that means 3 B-2 bombers were involved. And as we heard from Jennifer's reporting, it's likely deception was involved. Everyone woke up this morning to chatter about these 6 B-2 bombers flying west over the Pacific, refueling over Hawaii at about 11 p.m. But it's clear now that those were decoys, and that another flight of B-2s flew east, likely 3 of them. When you said 6 bunker-busting bombs were dropped, that flight that went east went to the target and annihilated Fordo, as we're hearing, likely destroying Iran's nuclear enrichment program. As you mentioned, for 11 years, President Trump has made clear that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. That was his red line, and tonight he enforced it. You mentioned the 30 Tomahawks fired from submarines. Of course, an Ohio-class guided missile submarine, the old Ohio-class ballistic missile subs that were converted, Sean, each one carries 154 Tomahawks, so it's likely the strike came from there. Not sure if USS George or Florida is patrolling in the area, but those are converted Ohio-class boats. Of course, attack submarines typically carry Virginia-class, LA-class attack boats carry about a dozen Tomahawk cruise missiles. So it could have been a pair of attack submarines, or most likely one of those converted Ohio-class guided missile submarines that took out that site. What's notable, Sean, is today President Trump had 3 opportunities to address the press. He declined each time. Perhaps a signal, looking back, that something was up. And of course, he always speaks to the press. And also, let's not forget, just a few days ago on Thursday in the White House, Caroline Leavitt at the podium said she had a message from President Trump. She said that a decision on Iran will be made within 2 weeks. And now it is very clear. There's a lot of emphasis on the word within, because we're now just 2 days since that statement. And this unprecedented strike was made against Iran, knocking out Iran's nuclear sites, likely setting back that program for years, decades, or perhaps ever.
And Lucas, we got to remember, too, it was only 24 hours after the president made that statement that the Iranians said they would not have a negotiation at all, so they gave their answer almost immediately. All right, Lucas Tomlinson at the White House tonight, thank you. In case you are just joining us tonight, this Saturday night, Iran's nuclear ambitions, they are officially dead by all indications.
Phil Stewart from Reuters says Fox News says U.S. used 30 Tomahawk missiles on other Iranian nuclear sites. I guess that would be the 2 non-Fordo ones. Let's see here. Yes, 30 Tomahawk missiles. Fox News says, Sean Hannity said, 6 bunker buster bombs on Fordo and 30 Tomahawk missiles from U.S. submarines. Okay? So Fox News reports reports that 6 bunker buster bombs were used on Fordo, and 30 Tomahawk missiles were launched from submarines at the other 2 facilities.
All right, we want to head to Israel on the ground. I just want to reiterate, this is a huge moment in that President Donald Trump has authorized and the U.S. military has just pulled off strikes inside Iran at 3 different nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. The word coming from President Trump's Truth Social that the bombers were outside of Iranian airspace, that the payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. As you look at the map there, I want to go live on the ground to Trey Yingst, chief foreign correspondent, about reaction there on the ground, what the Israelis are saying, plus what you think this fallout may be.
Yeah, Brett, good evening. This has been the talk of Israel for the past several days as the country waited to see if the Americans would get directly involved in the conflict. And even up in the last few hours, I was talking with current and former sources, trying to get an understanding of when this might happen. And at 1:55 local time, one source said rumors, Trump gave the word, supposed to be happening now. We were working on tracking it down, and the president taking to Truth Social to say the Americans did indeed strike 3 separate Iranian nuclear facilities, including the Fordow nuclear facility deep underground outside of the Iranian capital of Tehran. The bottom line here is that people are talking about enrichment. They understand that this decision was made because the Iranians were increasing their uranium enrichment capabilities and increasing the purity closer and closer to weapons-grade material. And the concern was that the Iranian regime was just weeks away from being able to build a nuclear bomb. We've seen over the past 9 days, the country has the ability to strike major population centers here in Israel with ballistic missiles. So you can imagine that having a nuclear warhead that could ultimately be attached to a ballistic missile would clearly be a direct threat to the Jewish state. And that was why the Israelis said that they made the decision to start these strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities and against top IRGC officials. And clearly tonight, President Trump ordering these strikes against the Iranian regime's nuclear program because there was no off-ramp for diplomacy at this point. There was that 60-day window that President Trump gave the Iranians to come to the table, 5 rounds of conversations, most of them taking place in Oman, with Steve Witkoff, President Trump's Middle East envoy, other top American officials meeting directly and indirectly with their Iranian counterparts, but the Iranians did not want to finish a deal. And ultimately, the decision was made by Israel to launch this operation that has led to a war developing between the 2 countries. And then again, tonight, the Americans getting directly involved, launching these strikes with those bombers over Iranian territory. We will certainly learn more information as daylight comes tomorrow in the region. But the bottom line here is that a decision was made that will change the reality of the current war between Israel and Iran and possibly create a scenario where the Iranians really have no other option than to give in, because the president has hit them so hard with these strikes, and the Israelis are continuing to take out their top military leadership, that the country is in a state of disarray. And so the bottom line here is that these strikes tonight show not only solidarity with the American ally in the Middle East, Israel, but also they show that the region is at a crossroads here. There are clear decisions that will have to be made by the regime officials that are still alive and by the country's supreme leader and the country's president, Masoud Pezeshkian. And so certainly more hours ahead, we'll learn that information. But again, the bottom line tonight is that the decision was made by President Trump to take out in effect, these nuclear facilities that the Iranians were using to enrich uranium closer and closer to weapons-grade material. You might remember back during the nuclear deal that President Trump pulled out of in 2018, the Iranians were enriching uranium at 3.67%. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, they were enriching uranium close to 60% purity, getting very, very close to a...
We've been waiting for news over the past 48 hours, and it finally happened. Something finally happened. And the U.S. has involved themselves with this conflict.
United States military.
Perhaps they underestimated, perhaps they didn't believe the president, perhaps they thought they were going to call his bluff, but now they don't have nuclear weapons, which is what Donald Trump said they could never have. Now the president, at the end of his statement, said, now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. There are other targets that were left untouched today. There are refineries. That is the heart and soul of the Iranian economy. I happen to know that most of them are centrally located in one area in this little island off Iran. That would be probably one of the easiest targets our military would ever have to hit. That would be the end of their economy. If you wanted to take out their power grid, it's gas-driven. That also would be a very easy target, especially in light of what the United States military, under the command of President Trump, was able to do tonight. So a lot more damage can be done. What do you think is happening with the few remaining leaders that they have in Iran? Because the Israelis took out, I think, 3 more top generals in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Well, Sean, I think you're right about the targets that haven't been struck yet. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have targeted tonight their nuclear weapons bunkers. Before that, the Israeli Defense Forces were targeting ballistic missiles and launchers and radars, but they have not targeted the political leadership itself, the supreme leader and those immediately around him. They have not targeted those oil refineries, other critical infrastructure, as a signal to the Ayatollahs that there's much more damage to be done if they try to retaliate against Americans in the Middle East or elsewhere. That's why President Trump has said tonight on social media, and I suspect he'll say again in a few minutes from the Oval Office, that it's in Iran's court now to decide whether there's going to be peace or whether there's going to be further war. I hope the leaders of Iran understand at this point that Donald Trump does not bluff, that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu together mean business. And they have ended Iran's nuclear program, which was the key military objective that America has had for years. And it took Donald Trump to finally do so.
We can't understate what Israel has done in this case, and Israel has shown that there's only so many missiles you can fire into their country, but they were able to sneak in drones for the initial attack that they had against Iran. They took out their top scientists. They've taken out their top generals. In the last 24 hours, they took out Iranian Revolutionary Guard generals, top generals that they had there. They were able to knock out their missile defense system. They opened up the skies. The Israelis controlled the skies.
I'm just trying to get you the latest updates here. Oh, is there a statement from the Revolutionary Guards? Let's see. Hold on. Hang on a moment. Let me check some of Iranian state media. Crazy, crazy, crazy. What a development. Travis Mackey, our viewer, says, I want to see video. I'm guessing eventually you will see video. Whew, guys, what next?
Complete.
Do we have Jennifer Griffin
there are
at the
several
Pentagon?
reports.
Can we get her up and we can talk through what we're hearing
Yes,
from
please
military
put me-
sources? Jennifer Griffin is live at the Pentagon. Let's bring Jennifer in. Jennifer, we're just getting word, obviously, with the president's.
This was from about an hour ago, or yeah, roughly an hour and a half ago.
Announcement, what this looks like.
Well, Brett, we knew that there was something afoot this morning when we woke and heard that there were 6 B-2 bombers that had been seen leaving Whiteman Air Force Base last night at midnight. And so those planes, we were told, were heading towards Guam. Now, Guam would have been an 18-hour flight into Iran, so it is likely that it was a different set of B-2 bombers that were used to bomb the sites, the 3 sites that the president mentioned tonight on Truth Social. That is the Fordo complex, which we've been watching all week. That is the massive main, sort of what's known as the heart or the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear program. It's underneath that mountain just outside of Qom, which is 2 hours south of Tehran. That complex, we understand, has been bombed by those U.S. B-2 bombers tonight. Also, Isfahan, as well as Natanz. Natanz had another underground facility. Remember, before Fordo was built in 2006, Natanz had been the main enrichment site. It was also built underground. Israeli jets had been targeting it in the last week, but they had not been able to penetrate underground. So those U.S. B-2 bombers, which flew out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, they would have taken out that underground facility. Natanz is interesting. You'll remember, Brett, it was the site of the Stuxnet virus, the cyber attack on those centrifuges years ago. But again, it was back up and running. And what is surprising, I think, tonight is that the president announced that it was not 1 site, but 3 underground sites and sites inside Iran's nuclear program that were struck by the U.S. Air Force tonight.
Yeah, and it is something. We'll go back to that Truth Social and eventually Control Room, if we can put it up there just so that everybody can see it on the screen. The fact that this, first of all, this announcement comes from Truth Social. This is a president who has put out a lot of announcements, big announcements through Truth Social, and this is the biggest of them, probably his biggest decision. The very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites, as you said, Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan, getting very specific there. And the payload, he says a full payload of bombs dropped on the primary site, Fordo. That suggests, Jennifer, as we had been saying for many days, that they may have made several passes at Fordo, considering that the experts were saying that just 1 probably wouldn't have gotten to the heart of that facility.
Well, remember, Brett, we've been reporting in recent days that Fordo is interesting because it has 2 entrance points. And we were told by experts who have followed the planning for this kind of strike for a long time that it would take at least 2 bombs from the B-2s, those MOPs, the massive ordnance penetrators. Those are 30,000-pound bombs, and each B-2 can carry 2 of them. Usually the way it works is that one of the MOP 30,000-pound bunker buster is dropped. It goes into a hole that's about a radius of about 25 feet, I'm told, and then the second bomb is dropped in the same hole. And so at first that 30,000-pound bunker buster will go down about 200 feet, explode, and then make way for the second bomb, which falls into that exact 25-foot radius hole. And of course, people are calling right now, so just a moment. And so what's interesting about it, Brett, is that you would have had to have at least 2 B-2s, but I believe that it was likely a package of 6 B-2s that would be flying. They each had 2 MOP, massive ordnance penetrators, on board at the time, and they would have hit both those entrances at Fordo. The president saying that Fordo, that the complete package was struck. That is significant because that means, as you said, that it would probably be multiple passes and multiple bombs dropped there.
Yeah. So as we get ready, remember, they are, 7 hours ahead, and this would have been the window to pull this off. The president, again, saying that it was very successful in 3 different sites. We should point out that the Israelis have worked really, as we've been reporting over the last week plus, very hard to take out the air defenses of Iran. Already in a first wave of runs back in October, the Israeli military and Air Force took out a lot of those surface-to-air missiles. Now, with this latest bombing run over the past few days, Jennifer, they have essentially eliminated it. And to talk to Israeli officials, they said they have control of the skies, really a full path to Tehran, and they've been taking out sites and targets at their will, they suggested. And this led the way for this bombing run tonight.
Well, the Israeli Air Force has just been unbelievable in terms of their success since June 12th. They have been carrying out nonstop runs and strikes against Iranian targets, including the first night, 14 Iranian nuclear scientists who were taken off the battlefield, as well as about 50 top generals in the Iranian military, including the head of their Air Force, their ballistic missiles, their drone capabilities, their IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps. So they have really had incredible success in terms of all of the spots and all of the above-ground spots that an F-16 or an F-35 could take out. They said a few days ago that they had air superiority. That then opens the way for the, and what that means is that they've taken out most of the air defense systems on the ground so that then their planes could really fly with impunity. And that also opened the way for those very, very, the stealth bombers, the B-2 bombers, which also are escorted, we're told, by F-22s and F-16s, and also the EA-18 Growlers. They play a very significant role. That's an electronic warfare jammer that flies with the B-2. And remember that second aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, had just gotten into the region earlier today. You had the USS Vinson. Those EA-18 Growlers are on board those aircraft carriers. They are absolutely essential for the B-2 to fly over Iran, even though the Israelis had air superiority over the country.
Jennifer, stand by if you would. Do I have Greg Palcott in Tel Aviv control room? Is he up and running? Okay. All right. We're going to get him up and running. Interestingly enough, Jen, we have seen a lot of Israeli missiles and drones coming in really night after night into Israel. This night has not seen that much of that. There have been a few warnings, but not the same volley that we've heard in recent days. In addition,
no, it's been very quiet until now. This is the biggest development over the past 24 hours, easily.
Sorry, a great success and a complete total success. Trump noted he had to go because he's about to make a speech about the strikes. Hey, for those watching over there on Facebook, hey, Facebook viewers, a special message for our Facebook viewers. If you are watching on Facebook, what I'm going to do is Facebook only lets the stream go for 8 hours. So Facebook ends the stream automatically at 8 hours. Now, 8 hours would be right as Trump starts speaking. So I think what I want to do on Facebook is for Facebook only to restart the Facebook stream. Okay, Facebook viewers? Because if I don't restart the Facebook stream, then you guys watching on Facebook, or you're going to be watching, and then probably right as Trump starts to speak, I'll have to restart it then. So this is only for the Facebook
to foment
viewers.
terror throughout the entire region. And that means they were funding Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and the Houthi rebels and the Syrian militia and the Iraqi militia, et cetera, et cetera. And then it was Joe Biden. The Iranians were on the verge of bankruptcy when he became president because Donald Trump's sanctions were working. The heart and soul of their economy is oil, and Donald Trump put sanctions on them. They were headed to bankruptcy. Joe Biden turned a blind eye to those sanctions. As a result, it enriched the Iranians. That allowed them to foment more terror, to fund Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah. And then it also allowed them to spend even more money on their nuclear program. What scares me in all of this is how close they really got. If you'd have believed the reports, if they were at 60% enrichment, every scientist, every expert I have interviewed, that I have talked to, said it's less than a month where you get to weapons grade 90% enrichment, which would mean they'd be able to build the bomb. That's how close they were. And it really was a minute to midnight. And I don't think the Israelis, I don't think President Trump could have waited a minute longer at this point. Your thoughts?
No, you're 100% right, Sean. Look, I want to put this in perspective. There are great leaders, and then there are people who get elected president. This is a great leader. I understand the Democrats. They're very upset because he's a great leader. I understand the media, very corrupt because he's a great leader. But the American people know he's a great leader. 80% of the American people wanted something done about these nukes. 80% of the American people. And here's the thing about Donald Trump. I never had any doubt he was going to do this. None. It's not because I'm Nostradamus. It's because I know the man. He's the one that said no to the Obama plan, no nukes. He's the one that's campaigned for 10, 11 years, no nukes. And so we knew that the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran was not going to bend. They were going to do head fakes and so forth and so on. You know, I talk about this movie, The Bridge Over the River Kwai. 1957, you had Colonel Nicholson. And he was this British colonel, and he was the commander, and the Japanese ordered him to build this bridge over the River Kwai. He was so proud of his bridge. He was the architect. Here are these British, they're POWs, they're building it. Some of them die during the course of it. And then he's given the order when the Japanese troop train comes across to blow it up. And he won't blow it up. You know why, Sean? He was so proud of his bridge. And then he shot, and he falls in the plunger, and it blows up. Some people are in love with diplomacy. Some people are in love with yelling peace. Some people don't understand that the military can be used wisely, and it can be used foolishly. Donald Trump is not an ideologue. Foreign policy is about prudence. It's not about painting by the numbers. Sloganeering is not leadership. I'm for peace. I hear young people go on TV, and this is a problem, saying, I'm a different generation. Forget about the past wars. Really? Reagan destroyed the Soviet Union. Should we forget about that? People need to learn history and understand history. Clinton gave the North Koreans the nuclear weapon because he didn't have the guts to bomb them. Obama gave the Iranians the nuclear weapon. Biden helped fund it, and Trump took it away. That is a leader. These leaders don't come around all the time. The United States military is a tremendous military. People who say they have faith in them trash them for everything that we've done in the past. Oh, look at Vietnam. Oh, look at North Korea. Look at this. Look at that. Look at it. It's about time we rally around this president, rally around our United States military, accept the fact this is a high point in American history and world history. What Israel has done and what Donald Trump just did is not only historic, but they have just protected the entire earth.
Crazy, crazy stuff. History in the making right now. Skylines over Israel. Let's take a look.
No, them killing when the killing of Soleimani was not on the killing of Soleimani was in Iraq. When the U.S. assassinated General Soleimani, that was in Iraq. That was not on Iranian soil. Anyways, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Netanyahu is speaking? Some people claim that Netanyahu is speaking. Now, I don't see him on any of my... None of the news outlets I'm looking at has him speaking, but let me check a couple things. Hold on. Is he speaking now? I guess he is speaking. I can't even show it to you. I don't even see it anywhere. It's neither on Reuters nor AFP. Hopefully I'll get it afterwards. It might. I don't even know if it's in English or Hebrew. Oh, he's speaking on his Twitter. Oh.
It has done what no...
Hold on. Netanyahu just posted a speech on his X account. I am going to show you the Netanyahu speech right now. It's not live. He just posted it. Okay? Here is what Netanyahu just said. I'm going to show you right now. Here it is. See, there is Netanyahu. So let's press play and see what he has to say. First of all, I got to get rid of these. All right. Here is Netanyahu.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
So had some words of high praise for President Trump. I think I might play that one more time. Hold on a second here. Let's play that one more time. Let's hear what Netanyahu had to say one more time. Again, here he is. It's a minute long, basically. Here is Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
A massive development. Absolutely crazy. The United States striking 3 major Iranian nuclear facilities.
And welcome to Hannity. We begin tonight with this Fox News alert. I just spoke to the President of the United States. I have some new information and breaking details to share about tonight's what is historic air campaign. Now, tonight, Iran's nuclear ambitions, they are officially dead. It appears the United States just completely obliterated Iran's top secret Fordow nuclear facility with 6 huge bunker buster bombs. It was originally speculated that you would only need 2. It turns out they used 5 to 6 dropped from America's stealth B-2 bombers. And that's not all. 2 other major Iranian nuclear sites, Natanz and Esfahan, were wiped out with 30 Tomahawk missiles launched by American submarines some 400 miles away. Everyone is out of harm's way for now. That does not mean that American assets in the region are not at risk, and we are monitoring the Iranian response or potential response all throughout the night. We expect the president will be speaking sometime either in this hour or in the next hour. In a statement the president posted to Truth Social, he wrote, quote, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including the Fordow site, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, that's Fordow, and all planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace." We will hear more from the president. We expect within the next hour, hour and a half, we will be on at least till 11 Eastern tonight from the White House. And, of course, we'll take you there live as it all happens. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click.
So, Trump is set to address the nation in about 8 minutes, apparently. So I've got a couple feeds up here, and as soon as that happens, that'll be right up on the screen. Let's take a look at this.
That this is something that is legal under the Constitution. Now, Tim Kaine, the Democrat from Virginia, he already had teed up a resolution to be considered in the Senate this week to say we have to vote under our war powers, under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, to decide whether or not to go into Iran. That was set up probably to have some vote later this coming week here. And he accused the president of, quote, horrible judgment. He said this is going to push us into a third idiotic, his words, idiotic war. Now, most Republicans have been willing to give deference to the president here. The congressional leadership was briefed, according to a senior White House official. We heard very early on from John Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, and House Speaker Mike Johnson, and they clearly thought that this was the right thing to do. And generally what we've gotten from Republicans, despite what I said about Davidson and Massey, is that they've thought that the president has the authority to do this. Even Adam Smith, who is the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, said yesterday, he said, you know, we're going to, quote, flail around in Congress. We will call for hearings. We will call for investigations. We will call for answers. He said, but the president of the United States is going to do what he's going to do under the War Powers Clause in Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution. He says, Congress is always kind of cut out of this. That might not be precisely what the founders intended, but so far, most Republicans are willing to stand by the president. I would be very interested to see what the reaction is after a briefing that comes up in the Senate on Tuesday. This was already on the books, a classified briefing for all senators about, what the information was. Now this story has changed dramatically here. But if they start to see this go the other direction, or there start to be, collateral damage, or maybe there's retaliation somewhere, does that harden and stiffen the resolve of some members? Or do they say, look, we need to hit back, and we need to hit back hard? I was, reminded what happened to the Marines in Beirut in the early 1980s. And that was an Iranian, proxy, killed 241 service members at the barracks in Beirut. And this is where there's a lot of concern about maybe retaliation by Iranian proxies on our bases in the region. There are sleeper cells, according to Tom Cotton and others, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, inside the United States. Would that have some sort of an impact here? Or maybe they could strike at American tourists in Europe. That's something that people are going to be on edge. The other thing that they want to know, Sean, is what this bomb damage assessment reads. Because when I talked to Richard Blumenthal, who's on the Armed Services Committee, he's a Democrat from Connecticut, he said, this is probably not going to be one and done. He said, we're probably going to have to go back at least a couple more times, and then also have some sort of a battle plan. Senator Blumenthal said, he was not convinced that we had an after plan that was sufficient to his stance right there. So that's something that members of Congress are going to have big questions about. And I should remind everyone that this comes right as the Senate this week was supposed to consider the big, beautiful bill and maybe pass it by this time next weekend. Does that interfere with this at all? Because everybody is so focused on what's going on in Iran and Israel, and if there are some sort of aftershocks, does that impact the Senate floor traffic? So far we don't know. The goal is to get that done sometime in the next few days. There's even a meeting tomorrow about kind of trying to weed in, what's out of that bill. That's very important. But you could see sometimes that events, as Harold Macmillan, the British Prime Minister, said, events are the most important factors in politics. We've had an event tonight, and whether or not that would impact the floor traffic on the Senate, we don't think so, but it's very early on here so far, Sean.
All right, Chad, we'll be following a lot of news. I know you will be reporting throughout the week this week. Thank you, as always. We expect President Trump to speak maybe in the next 4 minutes, as early as the next 4 minutes. When that happens, we will bring that live to you. But we bring back Jennifer Griffin, who has new information from the Pentagon tonight. Jennifer, what are you hearing?
Well, Sean, those B-2 bombers that took part in the strike on Fordo, they are on their way back home. They are on their way back to Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. That's a round trip of about 30 hours, and they will be refueled along the way. In terms of bomb damage assessment, as Chad was discussing, there's no indication at this point that there needs to be a second wave of airstrikes. The initial bomb damage assessment, which was done immediately over Fordo, the president himself said in a tweet, in a Truth Social post, that Fordo is gone. What he meant by that is that the 6 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs that were dropped, most likely there were 3 bunker busters dropped in each of the 2 vents, I'm told, that are at Fordo. So there was a lot of focus on the entrance and the exit to the site, but in fact, I'm told what was much more important to look at were the vents. And there are 2 vents into Fordo, and if they dropped 3 bunker busters into those, they would have dropped them sequentially. The first 30,000-pound bomb would have cleared the way, would have gone down at least 200 feet, exploded, removed earth, and then the second and third would have gone in. And that is why I think the president said with confidence tonight that Fordo is gone. But I've also been speaking to other sources, Sean, who tell me that Isfahan, the underground enrichment site at Isfahan, was in fact a harder target than Fordo. A lot of talk about Fordo in recent days, but again, all part of this operation has been a great deal of deception. So all eyes on Fordo and the B-2 bombers, but at Isfahan and Natanz, we understand, based on your conversation with the president, that 30 Tomahawk missiles were fired from those submarines, submarine or submarines. It's not clear whether one or more were used, but 30 Tomahawks targeted Isfahan and Natanz. And I'm told that Isfahan was, in fact, the hardest of the 3 sites. And in terms of what kind of submarine was used, I'm told from well-placed sources that it was likely a converted Ohio-class guided missile sub. So that would be like the USS Florida or USS Georgia, as Lucas first reported earlier this evening, Sean.
Let me ask you, Jennifer, if I may. I mean, obviously, this phase of this military operation has been a complete success, as you are describing. I am told that the Pentagon, the Defense Department, the President, everyone on his team have gamed out any and every possibility of any retaliation of the Iranians, and that part 2 of this mission is already in play, and that is to protect every American asset in the region. Have you heard the same?
Absolutely, Sean. These war plans have been honed for the last 20 years, and they are honed very frequently. And part of the most important part of this, the first night of strikes against Iran's nuclear program, were always going to be the easiest. They are technically very challenging in terms of the complicated refueling of these B-2s that fly all the way from the United States. But that is actually the easy part, as we have described, especially since the Israelis had helped with getting air superiority over with the last 10 days of bombing of those air defense systems in Iran. But now comes the hard part. Now comes the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which has, they have a navy that can essentially plant mines in the Strait of Hormuz. We heard there was an explosion earlier tonight at Bandar Abbas where an Iranian Navy vessel had been blown up. At first, they thought that it was the Israelis, but then the Israelis denied it was them. I would bet, Sean, that there are U.S. Navy SEALs and others right now preparing for a counterstrike. Certainly, the U.S. took many precautions. There is nobody at the American embassy in Iraq right now. All of the ships at the Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, have been moved out to sea. Sean.
All right, we really appreciate it. We'll come back to you, Jennifer Griffin, at the Pentagon.
Any minute now, Trump should address the nation.
On tonight. We appreciate you being with us. If you are just joining us, we're going to bring you up to speed with all that's going on. It's 10 o'clock on the East Coast, 7 o'clock on the West Coast. And if you are just joining us, 3 nuclear facilities inside of Iran have been struck. And according to President Trump, it looks like Fordow, that was a site that was buried deep in a mountain. That was the most difficult site that Israel needed help with, is completely gone tonight, with 6 bunker buster bombs being used in that case to take out those sites. On the other 2 sites where the Israelis had...
Hold on. Wait 1 second. Look what I got. Look what I got right there on the Reuters feed. Let's go to the Reuters feed. We're going to the Reuters feed because there it is on the Reuters feed. We're going to that one instead. White House feed isn't here yet. Look what we got for you. Look what we have for you guys. Amazing. There's no audio on this feed yet, though. That is a live shot. Oh, I got to put up live. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes.
Shit, boys.
Forget it. I'm not putting up live. He's coming right now. He's walking out.
Thank you very much.
Is there audio?
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel.
They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. And God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And that is it. All right, I thought he was going to honestly deliver a little more than that, but in and out, quick, very quick.
That if there's not peace, there are other targets that will be easier to hit, and these were the hardest targets. And I still am not sure, because what Iran needs to do to make peace. I assume there's some conditions. I assume there are conditions that Iran needs to meet. So that'll be interesting to see. That's a big question I have now. What does Iran need to do to make peace?
We will no longer need their service.
If Iran just says we're not going to fire more missiles, that doesn't deal with all the enrichment stuff, uranium enrichment stuff. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm going to go back to the live cams from Israel and get those back up. We'll see if anything happens there. But we still don't know where this is all going and how Iran's going to respond. All right,
the big war that they would face. The past 9 days have been incredibly difficult for the Israeli people as they've come under ballistic missile fire following the launch of this Israeli operation against those nuclear sites and against top nuclear scientists inside of Iran. But tonight, the region has changed. The nuclear sites have been largely destroyed, according to President Trump. There still is a minor threat of ballistic missile fire, but we understand that tonight Israel remains on high alert. They are entering into a new state of emergency, changing the home front command guidelines for the civilian population here of more than 9 million people, trying to limit public gatherings tomorrow, canceling workplaces and schools, understanding that Iran may decide to respond. But again, the latest information, Sean, that we have here tonight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reacting to these American strikes that targeted Iranian nuclear facilities, Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow. The places that the Iranians were enriching uranium, trying to get closer to weapons-grade material that they would then use in a nuclear bomb. President Trump announcing tonight from the White House those sites have been destroyed, and Iran no longer has the leverage that they had just 24 hours ago going into any future conversations with the Americans or the Europeans across the world. Sean?
All right, Trey Yangst in Israel tonight. We'll get back to you. I want to go back to President Trump. He just made a statement. He addressed the nation a short time ago. The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and he went on to describe in great detail what happened. Everybody heard those names for years, and he also did mention Farhon, the third site that was hit. Both Farhon and Natanz were hit with Tomahawk missiles from a U.S. submarine some 400 miles away. Fordow, that was the one that was buried deep inside the mountain. That was hit with not 1, not 2, but 6 bunker buster bombs. The conventional thinking leading into tonight, if tonight were to occur, was that we would only need 2. He was able to assure the nation tonight that the strikes were a spectacular military success and that Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. And Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks would be greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying, and by the way, they were saying it on Friday, death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. I went over that in the last hour. All the incidences, and I didn't even list them all, of all the Americans that have been killed because of Iranian military activity.
Carried out massive precision.
any U.S. base, any U.S. facility comes under Iranian attack, all bets are off as far as this being a limited type of strike. And you're right, they have a lot of plans going forward if that's the case. One of the questions is, what does the opposition on the ground look like? How does this all develop? That's not something that I've heard that the U.S. is really focused on. You know, regime change, while it may be tangential, is for the Iranians to decide, much like the president delivered that speech, Sean, in Saudi Arabia, which he said, we don't want you to be our image. We want you to be your own countries, but we want to do deals with you, and we want to change the face of the Middle East and how it operates.
You know, but I think you are very wise in cautioning people, and I did this all week, and remind people that there's no such thing as a military operation that does not have great risk associated with it. You know, at the end of the president's statement tonight, it was striking when he did thank God for the safety and the safe return of our troops, and just being appreciative that it was successful. There's always risk associated with it. There's always risk of retaliation. But there is no doubt tonight the Iranians no longer are a nuclear power. There is no doubt we can say tonight that the world, I think you can say unequivocally, is a safer place. It doesn't mean they still don't have their ballistic missiles. It doesn't mean that they will retreat. It doesn't mean that they will unconditionally surrender. It doesn't mean that the American military's job is done. They will protect American assets, interests, and people that are in the region. That has been made very clear, and the president made clear the consequences. So they do so at their own peril. They didn't listen to President Trump the first time. Let's see if they learn something before they strike back or attempt to.
Yeah, I just am really struck by the operational security, Sean, of all of this. The fact that, you know, Iran really, the intelligence said, wanted to strike Israel first. And then the president came forward and said, let's negotiate, thinking there could be a possibility for a path for negotiation. But he said 60 days. On day 61, Israel attacks first, changes the dynamic, really hits them hard, takes out the surface-to-air missiles, opens the door to the possibility. All the while, the president's saying, you could get back to the negotiation table. Then he says, within 2 weeks, I'll make the decision. Well, 2 days is within 2 weeks. He wasn't lying, but it was about operational security. And when the 6 B-2 bombers go west, everybody's looking, they're covering it over there. It's look at the shiny thing. It was already in motion in the east.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, but you've got to also say, the day after the president mentioned within 2 weeks, the next day the Iranian foreign minister came out and said, nope, no interest in negotiating. That could have accelerated the timeline, but that would only be speculation on my part.
That's right. Yeah, and they have the opportunity. They had it multiple times. The foreign minister shut it down in Europe. So we'll see what comes next.
All right, Bret Baier, as always, we appreciate you being with us, and special report every weeknight, 6 Eastern, right here on the Fox News Channel. All right, joining us now with more is Israeli Special Ops veteran Aaron Cohen is with us. Aaron, we have gamed this out now since the start of this conflict. We knew probably after October 7th that big things in the region were likely to happen down the road. The Iranians were given every opportunity to stop fomenting terror. They're the #1 state sponsor of terror. And I want to lead into my question by reminding people I've been to Israel many times. And I've been in those underground terror tunnels, and I've been to the border towns like Sderot. By the time I had been there, it was a town that had been hit with 10,000 rockets in the 10 previous years. It was a town with the naked eye, you could see Gaza, and children had to play in underground bunker playgrounds because it only took 12, 13 seconds for a rocket to be fired and land in that town. I saw the progression of the rockets that were being fired into Israel, how much more lethal they were on year 10 than year 1 to inflict maximum harm and carnage and damage to human life. So, you know, I ask Americans tonight, maybe there are a couple that are skeptical, although the Insider Advantage Trafalgar poll said that the president, by any means necessary, should take out these nuclear sites. But anybody that might have doubt, how many rockets would need to be fired into an American town or city before Americans would demand that their government respond. If you add up all the rockets over all the decades that have been fired into Israel, how many hundreds of thousands have been fired? If you talk about Lebanon, if you talk about Gaza, now the Houthi rebels, the Iranians directly, how many more missiles will Israel be able to withstand? At this point, it seems like a line has to be drawn in the sand. If you fire a missile at Israel, it is over.
New post by Trump on Truth Social. Any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Thank you. So that happened. He just posted that.
There it is on Truth Social.
Dan Lamothe, who's a military reporter with the Washington Post, says, unless something changes, it appears there will be no details about the military operation on Iran released by the Pentagon tonight. There is an 8 a.m. news conference tomorrow, but it is unusual to release nothing at this time. Hold on a second here. I think there's a new statement from Netanyahu, by the way. I think there's a new statement from Netanyahu. So I will try to get you that. Yes, a new statement from Netanyahu, guys. It's in Hebrew, but I have the translation. Here is the new statement from Netanyahu. This is in Hebrew, again, but it has been translated. Dear citizens of Israel, my brothers and sisters, in Operation Am Kalavi, we achieved unprecedented achievements together in Israeli history. You remember that from the beginning of the operation, I promised you that Iran's nuclear facilities would be destroyed one way or another. This promise was fulfilled. A short time ago, in full coordination between me and President Trump, and in full operational coordination between the IDF and the U.S. military, the U.S. attacked 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Iran's 3 nuclear facilities, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. In doing so, the United States continued with greater intensity and with great force the attacks of the IDF and the Mossad on the Iran's nuclear program. This program threatened our very existence and also endangered the peace of the entire world. Immediately after the operation was completed, President Trump called me. It was a very warm, very moving conversation. He blessed me, he blessed our army, and he blessed our people. And I congratulated him, the United States pilots, and the American people. President Trump is a strong leader of the free world. He is a great friend of Israel, a friend like no other. In my name and on behalf of the citizens of Israel, on behalf of the entire Jewish people, I thank him from the bottom of my heart. And I know, citizens of Israel, that I speak from the bottom of each and every one of your hearts. We stand together, we fight together, and with God's help, we win together. And as the verse says, we will ascend, for we can overcome them. That is from Benjamin Netanyahu. I just want to get that posted. That didn't work. One more time. One more moment. One moment here. Get this to work. with an enormous amount of missiles pointed at Iran right across the border, ready to attack Israel if Israel attacked Iran. That was kind of, from what I understand, Iran's plan was to use its proxy forces as a way to protect itself. But those proxy forces, Hamas and Hezbollah, also Assad is no longer in power in Syria, those forces that would normally have supported Iran and defended Iran have been devastated. So, anyways, but I think Joe Truzman, at Joe Truzman, Truzman, is right in saying you can trace this back to October 7th. Now, obviously, there's further history that goes back, but I mean, October 7th kicked off all of these things. Surrender Modi says, America just effed around and is about to find out. Again, I have no idea what's going to happen. None.